this week, Thomas Piketty's Capital, because I hear it was the operating system for Occupy Wall Street. It's now getting an incredible amount of buzz. So this isn't the answer I would have given you 72 hours ago before I started hearing about how important this man is. He's somebody who's basically looked at how inherited wealth has become the norm now. So the American dream, including my cab driver who has no use for Obamacare, as I came from the airport, who thinks that everybody should just fend for themselves, by God, it's rugged individualism all the way, is based on a misunderstanding of how capitalism is working. Because at this point we've lost the fuel rods that keep this thing in some relatively steady state, having dismantled everything from unions to a tax system that equalizes things a little bit, and we don't have things like, this is not Piketty per se right now, this last part, but there used to be something called the Jubilee. Whenever a king died, there'd be a forgiving of all debts, so that kids could go to college, hope that the king would die, and not have to spend the next 30 years paying for their college educations, for example. We don't have that. Anyway, from what I'm understanding, he's a very sophisticated economist who got Paul Krugman's hats off as the math is very elegant. But what's interesting is that his analyses all use things like Jane Austen as the examples that make it understood. So that sounds like one I haven't read, but I would like to read it along with everybody else in the Magic Wand Book Club of the Sky at the moment. Yes, but also there's something I heard that may or may not be true, that the Eskimo have 50 words for snow, or that the Dutch have 30 words for shit, basically. But whether it's true or not, the metaphor holds, which is, it may be true, but with more than the 50 words, you could get with 230 words the same information across. So every medium has its own strengths and weaknesses, but once one gets rid of the pejoratives that have long been associated with comics, it can do some things incredibly efficiently and well, arguably more effectively than another medium that might be an adaptation. I'm sure that Maus could not be adapted well into a movie. One could tell a story, but you couldn't tell this story exactly. This requires two things that can happen in comics that really can't happen, for instance, in film. One is, this is a story, that story, which is, I think anybody bothering to tune into this is either a fan of Garbage Pail Kids or of Maus, if anything. It's about a young man who's a cartoonist going back to see his father and visualizing and trying to understand his past. If you turn it into a movie, it's not like you're looking at the results of that visualizing. You'd be looking at a movie about a cartoonist who visited his father to turn his life into a comic book of some kind. And that's very, very different in its very DNA. As a literary work, it would be really hard to keep reminding people that I'm using these cat and mouse masks. It wouldn't mean the same thing, for example, as well as a lot of the way it's structured, which is stuff I'll be doing in the lecture as part. It's not all about Maus, but I will at least point out that there's layers of Maus that are not visible the same way well-written novels are read differently by people who spend their lives getting into debt in grad literature classes to learn how sentences are made and why. But one couldn't do that as a very crude example of what that might be. And one couldn't really do it as a just sheerly visual work because all of the highly detailed information that made Maus sits somewhere between memoir, history, whatever other categories it's been misfiled in before they came up with the misbegotten phrase graphic novel to take care of it. Wouldn't be accomplishable any other way. And there are things that can be done very efficiently in comics that have to do with the diagrammatic function of comics. That's not Maus specifically, but elsewhere. You're getting a show and tell that stands still. If you're looking at, my kid can learn from a YouTube video. I have to go find the prose equivalent with still diagrams if I want to really understand most things. So that's just almost built into what comics can do.